Welcome to Faith, Purpose, and Freedom. I am your host, Kayla Rose. I have Kristina with me today with Vibrant Family Education. Kristina, why don't you tell us just a little bit about what you do?
Thank you, Kayla. I am so excited to be here and thank you for having me on the show. What do I do? Well, Vibrant Family Education is all about the education of children. We want to make sure that every family, every child has a great fit education. And sometimes that means that we take them out of the public school and instead we take them and move them into homeschool. We really look at what's going to benefit the family, benefit the child, and really make sure that everything is working out to the best of the ability of the family so they can raise happy, healthy, and successful kids and kids who love to.
So, Christina and I actually met a few years back when I was in a situation where I needed to bring my children home due to personal reasons. In that moment, I felt lost. I kind of felt like, oh my gosh, I can't do this. I'm not a teacher. How am I going to do it? And all of the things that make us parents fear. Then there's laws and there's certain things we have to make sure we're doing. So could you kind of just touch base on what are the laws? What are the rules? Where can people to go to find out? Because each state has a different law.
Exactly. So the very first thing you want to realize is that, like Kayla said, every state has a different set of laws, right? And we can categorize those into three main sets. There's the high touch states that have a lot of restrictions. There's the medium touch states that don't have a whole bunch, but there are some. And then there are the low touch. And the low touch are either no restrictions, no requirements at all, or just a simple registration, right? If you're in one of those medium states, you're required to register and you're required usually to test at some times. So, for example, I live in Oregon and they're required to register with a certain organization and then they have to test at grades 3, 5, 8, and 10 throughout the time just to make sure that the student is making progress. And then you have those high touch states where not only do you have to register with an organization, then you have to do the testing, and then on top of that you also need to maybe submit some lesson plans or hours in seats, things like that. And all of that seems daunting, but it's not. All you have to do is figure out what's required, follow what they want, and get it done. And there are different organizations that can help you do that.
So I know, when we look at homeschooling, for me, I personally use Khan's Academy and Easy Peasy All in One. It's just what works for my family. It really gives the kids, everything they need. But on top of it, we're attending, and I don't know if all states are this way, but for our state, there are homeschool days. And so a lot of your history and science centers they're free admission for homeschool days. So is that something that's kind of incorporated in all states or just certain states?
It depends on the state what happens, but there are so many organizations now that realize that the homeschool movement is large and that they have a great population there for the homeschool families, and that they can bring in basically income or revenue during the day, that they have those special homeschool days and homeschool times. So for example, another family that I work with, they have a gym nearby. And so once a week, they open up the gym early and the kid play area early so all the homeschool families can come in. And it's either a nominal fee or a free fee for that day. But then what happens? Then the kids come back. They want to go back on other days. And so then they get a little bit of revenue during the daytime that normally wouldn't happen because of the kids being in school. So a lot of museums, like you said, forestry centers, a lot of the public works areas as well, they make sure that things are open for the homeschool families to come learn, explore, and make sure that they have those extra resources as well.
Right. Okay, so I have a few questions that just families have sent me. One mom said to me, Kayla, I would love for you to ask what happens if me and my husband both work, but we want to homeschool. How can we make that work? Are we able to do homeschooling in the evening, and how does that look?
Yes, yes, yes. I love that this parent is already thinking outside of the box. That is one of the three myths that I break all the time when I'm on podcasts. And that is, can I do it? Do I have enough time to homeschool? And one of the main objections is usually, I work full time. My husband works full time. I'm a single mom. And what I really want people to think about is remember that when you homeschool, you're not picking up school and setting it in the middle of your living room. You don't have the same time restrictions. You don't have the same schedule. You don't have all the things that go with a traditional school building. So then, yes,
Right.
you get to create and build your homeschool around whatever you need. So if you need to actually do the academics on nights and weekends because you're working, absolutely possible, right? The other thing to think about, though, is that those children will be with somebody, right? Maybe it's grandma and grandpa, maybe it's aunt and uncle, and maybe it's a daycare provider because you're still working. Well, guess what? They can work on those academics too, right? You, as the parent,
Yeah.
want to be mostly in charge, but you don't have to do it all. You can work with your provider, whoever it is that's staying with your kiddos, to do part of that stuff for you and with you, right? Especially, like you said, if you're using an online curriculum where basically the computer, the online is doing most of the academics teaching, and then the rest of the child learning is life skills and learning and things like that. That provider can help them log on, help them do some things, answer some questions. Now, remember what I was just saying. I didn't say complete education. I said academics, right? There's a
Yeah.
difference, and something that I want a lot of families to really pay attention to. The education of your child is their heart, mind, soul, and being, their full life, making sure that they're humans. The academics is just this little itty bitty piece when you look at the
Right.
whole school,
Yep.
the reading, the writing, the math, etc.
So for me, I think that was really something I had to learn and how I could incorporate it. My kids helped make lists. They helped find new recipes to try. They helped me in the kitchen, and people don't even realize, when you need 3/4 cup, I will sometimes hide my 3/4 cup, and I've actually done this. And now we have to figure out how to get to 3/4 of a cup. But it's really cool to watch them put their brains together. They're learning communication, they're learning how to work as a team, and they're learning math while cooking and making memories all in one. And I think that's
Exactly.
huge for homeschooling.
Yes. Yeah. And that's part of what I love about homeschooling so much is that it helps build those family connections. Now, I'm not saying that every single day is going to be rosy because you can probably attest to those days where everybody just wanted to go hide in their room and have their own space. But most of the time, because you are building those memories, you are working cooperatively, things like that. You really, really, and because parents are with their children more, you get that closer connection in that family that hopefully will continue the rest of their lives.
I can honestly say that where our family once was compared to where we are today, homeschooling was the transition
Yeah.
in our lives that we needed. And I mean, I've just watched my kids personally come together
Yeah.
and love each other and help each other. Like even watching the older ones help the younger ones, it's rewarding to watch that because when they're in school, they're looking at that paperwork and they're like, no, thank you. Something else I would just, ask your opinion on. This was personally for me. I have a daughter who has Tourette's, and when she looks at Common Core math, she is ready to lose her mind. I mean, she starts ticking, and by the end of the day, she's crying because her body's in pain.
Yep.
She is just mentally struggling. So we completely threw Common Core out. We don't even use it.
Nope. Yeah.
No.
No. I mean, and that's also the beauty of homeschool, right? When I work with special needs families or families with a medical condition, families who have kids on the autism spectrum, that is one of the biggest thing that comes out is that guess what? Now, because you're able to meet your child's needs, meet them where they are and where you want them to go, you don't have to do it exactly like the school system. If Common Core math does not work, you just need basic math, then that's what you do for your child. And then think also, and your family experienced this, when they were able to be at home in a less pressure situation, more security, more safety, guess what? Then their bodies can relax, their brains can open up, and more learning actually happens. So think about that whenever you're facing this decision of, is public school still a place for my child to be? Do I need to be them in a private school? Do I really want to bring them home, which is why I call it bringing education home, to give them a different space? Now, that doesn't mean to close the doors and hide them and keep them inside all the time, right? But they're able to be in a space where they can learn better because they're safe and secure.
Right. So let's go ahead and bring that right into the socialization question. What does healthy socialization look like? And will my kid be the weird kid because he's not being socialized?
I love this question so much. And every single homeschool family I look at and talk to, they're like, we hate that question. It is just so ridiculous because our child can usually walk up to any adult, any other kid, talk to them, play with them. And I consider that socialized. They can do the things to communicate and be human with other people. And that's one of the three myths that we bust all the time when my husband and I talk on different podcasts and different shows is your child will not be the weird one. They will not be unsocialized. Because any family who is truly looking at homeschooling as the perfect fit for them, they're going to make sure that their child has tons of experiences in tons of different places. So here's some examples for you. I believe that most families, even if they're homeschooling, they're going to do either sports or music or dance or horseback riding lessons or something. Well, guess what? Every time they're out doing those things, they are being quote unquote socialized. They're with other kids, other adults, things like that. Then it goes even farther than that. The beauty of when you do those lessons usually is a better fit for your family and your child's needs. So maybe they don't like getting up in the morning. Well, guess what? They get to go take their music lessons in mid-afternoon, right? So that they have a group of kids who also get to do it at that time. And most of those children like to be there. Now they enjoy the music lesson. They have people to cooperate with because everybody wants to be there instead of the public school music class where half of them are goofing around because they don't like music class, right? Then on top of that, you get to put them into special organizations like homeschool co-ops, religious groups, or the food bank. You get to go help in your community. You get to go do beach cleanups. You get to do all these different things with all different ages and worry about it anymore.
We recently actually contacted our local food bank just to be able to help because I was like, this would be a great opportunity for kids. And, you know, my kids, I feel like they are more socialized now than they were when they were in public school with hundreds of other kids. Tell me how that works. They're not afraid to talk to anyone.
No.
Especially my little guy. He'll talk to anybody. If you have a fishing pool, especially, you best know he's talking to you.
Yeah.
And so, I mean, I love it. So can you tell us just a little more about co-ops, how families can go about finding them? And, you know, is there a place where they can locate co-ops?
Yes. So co-ops, one of the greatest places to go is on like your Facebook page and look for local Facebook homeschool groups because a lot of the co-ops post in there, right? And it might be a private group that you have to apply to and tell them your basic address so they know that you're close by. But another place to go is, your community centers. Lots of times there'll be posters in there about the homeschool co-ops in the area. Word of mouth is amazing. Just get your ear listening and you'll start hearing. Or, believe it or not, when you're out and about, you'll see other families and you'll be like, I wonder if they're a homeschool family. I wonder if they happen to know, right? Don't be afraid. Go ask, because I have found that most homeschool families are so open about wanting to share. But the other thing a lot of people don't realize is that even if you're not religious, if you go to local churches, they often have a homeschool group or a homeschool co-op, and they are very, again, open to sharing with you, whether you want to join that group or they know of other groups, right? So don't be afraid to ask those questions and go check out organizations maybe you wouldn't normally hang out with. But guess what? You're going to find some great camaraderie with other homeschool families in those areas.
I have definitely met families that homeschool everywhere. I don't care if it's at the library. And honestly, the library, I think, have a library day for your kids. I promise you, you're going to walk into the library and you're going to meet 5 other families that are homeschooling, and they're there. And then they're going to give you information about co-ops. I really didn't know anywhere to go. I talked to everybody. So
Yep.
people just happened to start telling me different co-ops, and I was like, oh, this is awesome.
Yeah.
We even have a co-op that we just meet up at the Wilderness Center and we walk.
Yeah.
And we learn science and, fall, spring, you learn the different plants. So it's really cool. There's something different. And while you're doing that, socializing your children, you're also giving them education, and they don't even realize they're learning. So it's kind of fun.
Yeah. And the other sneaky thing about that, Kayla, is that you as an adult, as a parent, are also getting your community and your support. Because yes, if you're homeschooling and you stay home all the time, it can get lonely and it can get a little bit tough, right? So you want to make sure you have those other connections. So not only are your kids being socialized, but mom or dad is getting socialized and have a little bit of a break too.
Oh, yeah. Well, and you know what? To be honest, I say all the time, I learn more now than I ever learned when I was in school. And so, when I first brought my kids home, Callie was in 5th grade, and I realized she didn't even know how to tell time. And I'm sitting there one day, and I had asked her what time it was. We had our just, normal clock, and she didn't know how to tell time on it. And I was like, excuse me?
Yeah.
And so we had to help her. She hadn't really learned how to count money. Now, shame on me also, absolutely. But, these are things when our children are at school, we just assume they're learning. And then by the time they get home at the end of the day, we're cooking, cleaning, running off to sports. And half the time I didn't even look at what they were bringing home. And if I did, I was like, okay, you got an A on this. And I just moved it along.
Yeah.
Didn't think anything of it. So it was really weird whenever I sat down one day and I'm realizing all the things that my children hadn't even known. And so we had to start over. And I'm talking right down to addition, subtraction, multiplication, division, facts, and just really tuning in on those, because I feel that if they know those facts, they can almost do any math.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And, counting money and telling time. And I mean, we just went back to those basics, and sometimes that's all they need. If they know all of that, they're going to be successful.
Yep, exactly.
Now we'll just jump into this because this is a question I have, but I'm always about letting my kids use tools. We have tools for a reason, but one of the biggest questions is AI. Is AI acceptable in homeschool, and is it considered cheating?
That is a wonderful question, and I want to put it back on the parents, right? Because most people who homeschool have sat down and they have looked at, 1, their family values, 2, what they expect out of education, and 3, really what they want to use in their homeschool as far as the quote-unquote tools, right? And so my thing for you to think about as an adult is, do you want your child set up for future success? Well, yes, most people, right? Do you want them to be safe? Yes. Do you want them to have skills that might carry them forward in their future careers? Well, yes. AI, unfortunately, is here to stay. So then it depends on how fast you introduce it, when you introduce it, and how you introduce it. Now, would I be giving it to a 2nd grader, a 3rd grader, and just letting them go wild on it? Absolutely not. Would I sit down and maybe do a project with them and show them what it can do and remind them of some of the safety rules around using it? Yes, because they're curious about it and they might learn something really, really cool because it can bring back all sorts of information and things like that, right? But again, you want to make sure you're setting it up and using it in a way that is appropriate for you and your family. Now, as you said, you have some older kiddos, teenage, they go around us all the time. They start using things anyway. So do you want to try to keep it from them and then them use it behind your back and then maybe use it unwisely and then get in trouble because they got some bad information? Or do you want to sit down with some rules and not regulations, but rules and expectations and things like that and really help them grow and thrive with it, right? So it's one of those things that family values is really playing core into that, right? And then also the safety of your child. Do you want them to know how to use it and know that it's not always right? That they should not always listen to it because it's going to give them bad information sometimes. So yes, I think AI is fine, but with guidance, expectations, boundaries.
Right. So, I often use AI for Bible study with my kids. Because one thing I know is I've sat down in my life, read the Bible, and never understood a word that it said.
Yep.
So I taught my kids that you can ask AI, like if you're reading a scripture, who was it written to? Why was it written? What was happening during that time? And how can I apply this to my life? And so my teenagers have those questions. Lydia and Callie have those questions written down. And they'll look it up, but it's really cool to watch how they'll come to me and they'll be like, did you know? And they get really excited. And so then they're explaining it. They also, so my kiddos love to learn different languages. Why? I have no idea. It's just really fascinating to them. But it's really cool because they will go use AI to find out like how to say a sentence in Spanish or, German, and they love it. And then they come to me and they tell me. And so I have learned that they're utilizing it properly. But when I first learned about AI, my son had lost his friend and there were a bunch of kiddos that weren't doing schoolwork. So I'm the mom that's like, all right, y'all come into my house and we doing schoolwork. I walk in the room, everybody's got their phone, taking a picture of the question on the computer, and AI's giving them the answer. And I was like, what y'all doing? And they are like, did you know you can do this? And I was like, give me the phones. Just go ahead and give me the phones. AI is absolutely not acceptable in that form. Right. Because you're not learning. No. If you're researching something and then you look to make sure that the information you've gotten is accurate, now you're learning.
Exactly.
And AI is acceptable in my home if we're learning with it. Not acceptable to cheat our way through. Because it's not going to benefit them later.
Yeah. But also remember that sometimes it does give you false information, right? So even though they think they're checking their work with AI, make AI give you the website or the information that proves it to you as well, right? Because you can't believe AI all the time. So it might say, oh yeah, this is the best written essay ever. Or, oh yeah, you did that math problem beautifully. And actually, here's a great example. I was working on a business plan for myself and my business. And I went back and checked some of the numbers, and AI had gotten the addition wrong in huge numbers that were supposed to prove that my company was going to be viable for a loan. I went back and said, AI, would you look at this again, please? They're like, oh, I made a mistake. I'm so sorry. So don't rely on it, guys. Make sure you're double checking with another resource as well. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a great point. Absolutely. So, I mean, AI is definitely acceptable, just like a calculator as a tool. But check your work. Make sure that the information is reliable. Yeah, I love that. So another question I have is, if a state requires standard testing at the end of the year, how do parents go about that?
Got it. That is a really, really good question. So when states usually, it's a state when a state has you register with an organization, in my case, it's called the Educational Service District in the state of Oregon. They're little chunks of things, little educational, buildings around the state, right? Then you can go back to that same organization when it becomes testing time and ask them, how does testing work? You can also go into your state website and look at testing requirements. And most of them have a section for homeschoolers about how to meet your state testing requirements. So you're able to look up somebody. Usually you have to get a proctor. You have to have somebody else outside the home give the test just so that they know that, mom and dad haven't done it for them and cheated and things like that.
Right.
But it's just one of those things that you really work with that person or that agencies that you have to report to figure out what's the best way to do it. Now, some tutoring spaces, some people who have like tutoring centers and things like that, they also are / a testing center because they know that that's needed for some people. So just kind of look around and keep asking those questions. And it should be pretty apparent either on the state website or the organization that you had to register with.
Okay, awesome. So how does a parent legally withdraw their child from public school?
You walk out the door. Just kidding.
Just run as fast as you can.
Fast as you can. Okay, so that goes back to those 3 levels of states that we were talking about earlier, the high, the medium, and the low. But mostly, you basically walk into your school that they're currently attending, and you say, I am withdrawing my child to homeschool. Can you give me the proper name, address, whatever that I need to continue this further, right? And then, of course, go to your state website and look at the requirements that are on your state website. There's a beautiful group called HLSDA, Homeschooling, Learning, Legal Defense, there we go, School Association. Yeah. And everybody who wants to homeschool, I wish I could get an affiliate for them because everybody really, really needs them. And it's not that they charge a lot of money, but they are just very, very knowledgeable. And it's one of those places you can go to figure out what those requirements are and who you need to talk to. So just make sure you're doing that. Now, if your child has never been in school, maybe they're only 5, 6, and they haven't started school yet, then that's a little bit different. Unless you have to register them, and if you're a medium or a high state, you have to register them with somebody. Most of the time, that's not even until age 7. So just stay home, play with them, help them learn, do whatever you're going to do. But then usually age 7 is when most states kick into they have to be registered as a homeschooler if they're not going to go to public school. But again, just look it up on the Home Legal Defense School Association or your state of education board, right? And they'll tell you where to go, what to do. But if you've never been in school, then it's no big deal. You just send in the letter or whatever, and then you just continue with your own school. But be aware, like unfortunately, Kayla, you faced a lot when you go into your school and you say, I want to homeschool, I'm taking my kids out. They're going to throw a fit, most likely. Because 1, they're losing revenue because they're not going to get paid for your student anymore. 2, and I hate to say this about other teachers, but many teachers don't think homeschooling is kind of a real thing. And I am an unusual person because I've done my research and I've worked with families and I know the beauty of it. And I've switched from that original teacher view into supporting families at where they need to be. So there's just lots of resistance. And especially if they're like a medically fragile or a kid on IEP, they're going to say, oh, well, you can't do that because then there won't be any services. And that's not true either. They're just trying to scare you to stay put, okay? So please do your research. Please figure out what's best for your family and get some help if you are running up against that. They're telling you can't take them out, et cetera, et cetera.
Okay, so I just feel, I don't know, God's putting it on my heart to share. And so when I chose to homeschool, my daughter had almost been abducted on her way home from school. And she ended up having 19 death threats.
Wow.
She was being bullied. She had been punched in the head, shoved down. It was awful. And we were witnessing things that we never wanted to witness. In those moments, the school then told me I wasn't allowed on the property because I wanted to make a police report. And so I said, you know what? It's fine. I'm going to pull my kids. They called CPS on me. Mm-hmm. They sent Child Protective Services to my house. Yep. And I gave CPS the whole list, every email. I did everything. If you're having trouble with your child being bullied at school, do not just make phone calls. Mm-mm. Do not. Yep. Do everything in writing form, because nothing that has You have a trace, you have a trail, you have a paper trail.
Yep.
They can't take it away. I emailed the principals, the teachers, I emailed the school board. I did not play, and I made sure I had proof. And this is where AI is also amazing. Type into AI exactly what is happening in your life and what is going on. They are going to tell you every law code that is being broken. And now you're going to use AI to help you create a email. And I'm going to tell you, the school's going to get real scared,
Yeah.
and they're going to be like, okay, fine. I've never had an issue since. I mean, I found my law codes. I luckily did know an attorney that was a family friend also that kind of helped me along the way. I put myself in rooms with the right
Yep.
people to protect my children. And I promise you, if you are a parent struggling, like your emotions, the way you feel, your anger, your frustration, it's valid, and we see you, we love you, and we are here to help you in any way we can. If I can't, I'm going to send you over to Kristina, and she's going to help you get them kids home. So that's just being vulnerable,
Yeah.
sharing my story that honestly I spent years terrified to share. I didn't even want to tell anybody it ever happened. I was embarrassed. It's hard. There's a lot of emotions that go with it, but today it's the best choice I ever made. I walked through the storm. God never let go. And I mean, honestly, my kids are excelling.
Yeah.
I,
Yeah.
so definitely don't be scared. They will try to scare you.
Yeah, they will, unfortunately. And again, it's because in some ways they don't know any better. And in other ways, like I said, it's the revenue thing, which is really sucky that our kids have money attached to their heads, kind of thing. And in other ways, it's ignorance, right? They think, oh, well.
Yeah.
And it actually goes back to this myth that is the other one that I talk about all the time. They think that parents aren't, not that they're not smart enough, but they aren't educated enough to take their children home and be their teacher. It is a myth in our society that if you have not gone to teacher college, if you have not graduated with an education degree, if you have not done college yourself, that you can't educate your children at home. And if you've listened to this conversation that Kayla and I have been having, what did she just say? Just a few minutes ago. She's been learning almost as much as the kids, and it creates that bond, right? But what she also said was that because they're learning together and figuring out things together, everybody's learning. The child is not being left behind. The child is learning. And they get excited when they get to share something that maybe mom and dad didn't know. It's okay if you don't know all of the answers. The other thing I really want you to think about is that remember all of the supports we've talked about throughout the show. Co-ops, tutoring, other homeschool parents. You don't have to know it all. You just have to be willing to ask for help, do some research, have fun with your kids, and it will be okay. As long as you don't go hide yourself in your house and never leave again, I assure you, as long as you're curious and building curious learners, you're going to be okay, and your kids are going to be okay too.
Well, and there's Facebook groups. There are support groups out there. And do not be afraid to ask questions, because there are parents on there. There are other families on there that want to help you, and they will help you. And there's different forms of homeschooling too. Do you want to kind of touch base on that? Because I think some people they're like, how do I come up with my own curriculum? What do I do? And it can get scary.
Yeah, and that's where a lot of the overwhelm comes in whenever parents are thinking about moving out of the public school into homeschool, the overwhelm of that, because there are so many different ways. So one that is really kind of funny is called Unschool, and it has a very bad rap because they don't use a quote unquote curriculum. They teach school, they teach academics through real life, right? And so they don't pick up a book. They don't do worksheets per se, et cetera, et cetera. All of their writing is based on letters to grandma and grandpa, or letters to, government organizations. All of their math is through cooking, baking, measuring, cutting, all those kinds of things. So Unschool, it kind of gets a bad name, and it takes a little bit of time to get into, right? So it's not something that you would maybe jump into directly. Okay, so then there's what's called the online homeschool, where you can sign up for an online curriculum where the computer gives you everything, your reading, your math, everything. They do the placement test, they put your kiddos in different groups and things like that. And there's lots of times one of those through your school district, but be careful, you're still under the school laws if you go that route. If you choose an independent online school, then you have more freedom and flexibility like a true homeschooler. But again, you can do everything through and around the computer. You can go and purchase. You can go to a homeschool convention. You can go to the library. You can go to a homeschool swap website. You can buy full curriculums, again, on reading, writing, math, etc., and have the books shipped to your door. Then you can go the total rogue route where you're like, I'm going to do it all by myself. I'm going to do YouTube University and Khan Academy and all these other different things and bring them in and place them together and print off your own worksheets and things like that. All of those are acceptable. But I want to warn you and remind you, you're trying to teach to your child's learning style, not necessarily your own. So this is where one of those times when you might want to hire a coach or talk to an experienced homeschool parent, right? It's like, what is this learning style thing? How does that translate into working with my kiddo with academics and things like that? But you want to make sure that it is a great fit. My sister-in-law was a great example. She had 4 girls. And for a long time, she bought the books, they went through the curriculum, they had the worksheets, etc. And after a couple of years, the girls would just roll their eyes and refuse to do anything. She was comfortable as a mom teaching that way. The girls were like, no, we want more hands-on kinds of things. We want more experiences and things like that. Even though the learning time was very short, like only an hour or 2 hours a day, which is a surprise to most parents, they still were refusing. And then when my sister-in-law let go of that, it's like, okay, fine. How do you want to learn this? And they would start giving ideas. Can we learn it like this? And they started doing that. Everybody had more fun. Everybody had more learning happening. So yes, there are tons of different ways to do it. That's why many families have different levels and stages and things like that. It can be overwhelming, but don't worry. Just take one step at a time and you'll be A-okay.
Yes, absolutely. And just for the parents that might be financially struggling, because I could not afford to just go buy every curriculum for 5 children homeschooling. Easy Peasy All-in-One is completely free. And so I do love it. And I love the little games it gives them, especially for little ones.
Yes.
Once you get into your older kids, they're like, no, thank you. Both of my daughters are getting ready to start blogs. That's what we've been working on this week. And watching them get on the computer and just learning how things work, it's teaching them real life.
Yeah.
But in the same breath, it's also teaching them to be entrepreneurs. I will 150% say homeschooling is going to raise more entrepreneurs than public school and college ever did.
Yep. Absolutely.
I believe it in my heart.
Yeah.
And so, I have a 16-year-old daughter. She ended up going to work with her dad, and she loves to weld and ends up getting a welding certification at 16 years old.
Yep. Yeah.
Because she was better than most of the welders there. They were all like, what? But she absolutely loves it. I have a 13-year-old daughter who is phenomenal at painting nails, and she paints nails and sells them now. And, I have my 11-year-old daughter is a published author and working on another book.
Yep.
You have the freedom to allow your children to do anything they want, really, and just really delve into what they love and their interests. Yep. And I didn't believe you at first. I'm like, how am I ever going to make this work? And then you do. And I remember, we were driving down the road one day. There's a dead deer on the side of the road. And I just remember turning it into a whole science lesson. Mm-hmm. Suddenly, everything in your life becomes a science lesson, but then it became a biblical lesson too. And that was the moment that was a breaking moment for me, because I was just like, oh, I can do this, and I'm going to be able to do this. Yeah. My husband loves teaching the kids just about plants.
Yes.
Dandelions, for instance. they have so many health benefits, and he loves doing this.
Yeah.
And that's just another benefit that they're getting. So it doesn't have to all be, here's a book, right?
Exactly. Yeah. And may I take it a step farther?
Yeah.
Yeah, now you're looking at your kiddos who are needing special therapies. Maybe you're medically fragile, maybe you're autistic child, maybe you're ADHD child. They're doing eye therapy, they're doing balance therapy, they're doing speech therapy. Guess what? Every single one of those things is now part of their curriculum. So you're not stressing them out and going so much further with their academics because you're meeting them where they are, right? So, for example, I have an autistic family that I work with, and the little boy, thank goodness, has never been in school. Mom knew that it was not going to be a good fit, and so she worked with me, and she said, you know, he's not going to school. I want to homeschool him. And so she sets up her therapies for him, his speech therapy, his physical therapy, his extra tutoring therapy, all on different days. So he has those things when he's in a good state, and then they do the regular learning at home before and around those things. So all of those things become part of the learning, part of the education, because are we expecting them to be quote unquote on grade level when they have severe disabilities? No. What we want is progress. What we want is them learning something new. What we want is for them to be independent and self-sufficient to the best of their abilities. And if you're at a school, they're going to say, well, they need to be on this grade level and they're failing and da-da-da-da. It's like, really? Are they failing? Or is the school failing them because they're not able to learn in that situation? Oh my gosh, I'm going to choke up on this one because I just feel it so hard, right? When these kids are discounted because, oh, well, they're not meeting quote unquote state standards. It's like, well, why does that matter? If they are happy, if they are making progress, and they're being the best little kiddos that they can be.
I can't agree more because where my kids were, and Annabelle was dyslexic and she was on an IEP. Well, she wasn't even on the IEP yet. I had been fighting for her to get help.
Yeah.
And so like they were finally doing the testing, and that's another reason they fought me so hard.
Yeah.
When I pulled her.
Yeah.
Nolan was on this title reading program. Sophia was on this title reading program.
Yeah.
My kids were failing at school.
Yeah.
Like they could not even concentrate or think straight. They were broken. Yeah. And you are so right, because a lot of our first year of homeschool was just helping them overcome. And we did a lot of grounding techniques and journaling, and it's as a family, we grew. I became a minister homeschooling my children.
Yeah.
Because I started going to ministry school while I was homeschooling because I needed to learn how to help my own kids. I didn't even know how.
Yeah.
I didn't know how to help myself in that moment. So grounding was just one of our daily techniques. And I think it's perfectly acceptable for families to take a step back and just really rest.
Yes.
That first year may not look like what you think it's going to look like.
And your children are going to shoot forward and catch up any time and space that you give for that, right? Now, if it leans into 2 and 3 years, that's too far. But that is actually one of the things I tell families that I help all the time. For the first month or two, you are going to do what's called D-school. That's different than unschool. Unschool is a teaching style. D-school is what you do when you take your children out of school. You spend a month or two just learning rhythms and routines, settling the nervous system, playing games, being and doing life, figuring each other out, because it is an adjustment, right? And you start sprinkling light academics in. And academics look like what you said. You're sneaking it in. You're doing it through the bedtime stories. You're doing it through a game. You're doing it through cooking. You're doing all this education, all this academics through life learning. And you're really setting the stage for success at your home by de-schooling for a month or two at least. Like Kayla said, it may take up to a year to get a really good rhythm and routine. But then your kids jump forward and they start pulling their learning towards them because they're like, oh, I'm interested in this. Can we learn about this? Awesome. Yes, we can learn all about space. Let's do space math. Let's do space history. Let's do space reading.
Yep.
Let's do space everything, right? I mean, I have one another family. The little boy is totally into tractors. And he would not do any math unless it had to do with tractors. Well, guess what? At that young age, you can kind of cheat a little bit as long as it had a tractor on the page. It had a tractor wheel, around the problems, whatever.
Right.
He thought it was about tractors, so he would do it, right? And then, of course, mom brought in real tractor stuff. It's like, oh, look at this country's tractor, and let's look at this country's tractor, and how are they the same, and how are they different? And so he got to learn through tractors.
See, that's awesome. Like, I think that's amazing. And that's just, there's so much available to, and a way to teach our kids. If every single one of us were the same in the world, like, we'd live in a really boring world. And,
Yes.
Sometimes we have to be willing to take a step back, and we have to be able to learn in their world. And we have to live in their world and let them smile and thrive. Honestly, it's a blessing. It's scary. I'm not going to lie. I was horrified. But I think that in the end, I found how worth it truly is.
Yeah.
And you do. Eventually, you're sitting there. We just got our daughter rabbits, and suddenly Annabelle researches rabbits all the time. And because you worked with Annabelle, she was struggling with reading.
Yep.
Give her something to read about rabbits. She can read every word of it. Tell me how that works.
Yep.
She just right through it. So, I think that it's definitely, a huge blessing.
Absolutely.
All right. So how can parents use homeschooling to discover their purpose?
Say that one more time.
How can parents use homeschooling to discover their purpose?
Oh, wow. That's a good one. Because as a parent, right, you're learning new things with your child as well. Sometimes you do discover your new purpose. One of the things about entrepreneurship is that as you are growing and building your business and your children are like either following along or watching you grow, all those kinds of things, you can learn back and forth from each other, right? And you'll just know what is a really good fit. It's like, oh my gosh, like you decided that a ministry was going to be perfect for you. Some moms do the homeschool blogging or recipe blogging or other things, and they really find a good purpose there. Other moms figure out that, oh my gosh, I can start doing home crafts like soaps and things like that, and then go and sell them with the kids at like the farmers markets and things like that. There are so many different things that you can learn about yourself and your children through the homeschooling process that you really can find your purposes. Right. Yeah.
I think for me, that's exactly what happened. I found my purpose, and then I found my purpose in coaching. I found my purpose in helping people just overcome fears.
Yeah.
And in the end, it's just been a blessing. I don't think I would want to do anything else now. So I guess the last question I would have for you is, what led you to wanting to help parents homeschool their children?
That is a great question, because as I alluded to, I was actually one of those teachers in the classroom for 25 years. And near the end of my teaching career, of course, this big thing called the pandemic happened. And at that point, I had transferred to what was called the online school, which I've also alluded to. Most public schools have an online school. When I was in the online school, the last 2 years of my teaching career, I realized that I was coaching parents as much as I was teaching the kids in front of me on the computer online. And when I started realizing that, and I didn't want to be in the classroom anymore, it's like, you know what? There are parents out there who need the kind of support that I have, because I understand the school system because I was in it for so long. I understand what kids need to learn and grow, and I learned more about this homeschool space. And when those two married together, it's like, oh my gosh, I have a wealth of knowledge that can really help families who are stuck kind of in the middle, kind of like you were. They say I can't leave. I really want to leave. I don't think I can do it all, but I do think I can do it all. And just finding that space to help and support those parents is like, you've got this. And if you don't have it, now you have someone like me in your corner who can help you get over the rough spots, right? I can help you move to the next space if you need it, right? Now, some parents, a lot of parents actually only need me for maybe a year and a half, because then they gain their confidence. They understand where they and their child are moving to, and they just go. They're flying, right? I always welcome them back with open arms. I want to help them anytime they need it. But it's not a forever thing. But when you're in that space, when you're not sure, come explore with someone who can show you both sides of the coin. Come explore with someone who can give you a little bit of courage and a little bit of inspiration to help you do what's best for your family. Okay?
Absolutely.
That's the biggest thing. And one last thing is that you said at the beginning, homeschooling is not for every family. And that is so very, very true. And it's not a but. And anytime you spend at home with your child, that they can then take those lessons into the later part of their life is a benefit. There are so many families who have had to kind of bounce back and forth between public school and homeschool, back and forth because of life circumstances. And they still see the benefit of those years that they spent at home with their child in the public school, on how they handle themselves, how they ask questions, how they engage with their learning. And there's colleges now who are specifically looking for homeschool kids because they do know how to do life. They don't have to worry about dropping out because they don't know how to do their laundry and they're overwhelmed with their bills and things like that. These kids come in having that knowledge so then they can focus on their academics, and they're there because they know what they want to learn, not because they're there to party and explore. So there's another.
Great. And that's actually a big question I actually have gotten from people too, is just like, what if your kids want to go to college? How will they ever get a job without a diploma? And
they get it.
Do you want to kind of just explain that?
Yeah. They do get a diploma. If you are doing your job as a homeschool mom, a homeschool teacher, you have tracked their learning, you've tracked their classes, you give them a high school diploma, and those high school diplomas count just as much as a public school diploma. You get to use it, right? So do your research, right? I'm not super into that because it's a higher grade level and I can give you basics on that, but there are other people who actually teach you how to write your homeschool diploma. You'll want to get a hold of those people in like 9th grade or around that age group, right? So making sure that you're laying out the way it needs to be, but your homeschool diploma is completely valid. And again, that legal defense group that we were talking about, they will help you fight it if there's some college or vocational training or whatever that says it is not valid. It is valid as long as you've done your work and they are knowledgeable.
Yeah, that's right. And they can actually sit and take the testing to get into college also, because I know that there is, the SAT, is that what it's called, or ACT?
Oh yeah, you absolutely want them taking the SATs and the ACTs that set them up for college. If you want to, you can go let them do the GED, right? Because we know that's also an equivalent to a high school diploma. But yeah, it's all there and it all works.
Yep. All right. Well, Kristina, I appreciate you. You've been amazing, and I hope that all of your knowledge and wisdom helps somebody listening, answers questions. How would anybody reach out to you if they need to reach out to you? I will include all your links, but
the best way to do it is just go to my website, vibrantfamilyeducation.com. There's a booking link there. There's an events link there, so you can come see me when I'm doing other things like the podcast and the summit and other things that I do around homeschooling and education for families. So just vibrantfamilyeducation.com. Come find me. Or on Facebook, Kristina Heagh Avritt.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with me today. I appreciate you. It has been a blessing and wonderful. And you continue moving lives, changing lives. We love you. We appreciate you.